Welcome to another in the series of Connectable videos talking about the hobby of collecting original comic book art. I'm Nick Coleman, CEO of Connectable, and I'm joined by my good friend and comics agent and probably the most knowledgeable person in the UK about comics, Joseph Melchior of Brick Comics Art.
I don't know about that, but okay, thank you.
And we are here today to talk a little bit about our passion of collecting original art and to talk about some great pieces that we have with us today. So we're going to kick off with a little bit about why or how, if you're new to the hobby, if you're new to collecting comic book art, how do you get started? How do you get into collecting? I would say, well, the first thing you need to do is do a bit of research. There are some really good platforms, community platforms for comic art on the internet, both in for the US and British tradition of sort of superhero type art. There's a great platform called Comic Art Fans. You can visit, and for bande dessinée, which is the European tradition of comic art, there's a great platform called 2D Galleries, which I definitely recommend you go and have a look at. There's also quite a few auction houses that regularly have auctions for comic book art in the US. Probably the most well known being Heritage at ha.com and Comic Link. Plus Comic Connect, and there's various others which you'll find by doing some research. In Europe, there's Christie's in Paris, Art Curiel, Million, and I would suggest you kind of look at their websites, get an idea of prices. That will give you an idea of the sorts of things that you might be interested in. Whether that be based on comic books themselves or characters or particular artists. There's a lot of stuff out there for you to go and find and have a look at.
So for me, in theory, I like the idea of having a representation of the best example I can find of a particular artist. It doesn't usually work out that way. I get one and then I see something else I like, and so you end up with more. The sort of exception to that are people like Brian Bolland, who I'm a huge fan of. I probably own 25 pieces by him, and every time I think I've got enough now, I find something else which feels like I have to have it.
That does help. So you're his art agent.
It's true, but also a complete lack of self-discipline, I think, in that respect. So very much do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I'm completely not the opposite, but I'm quite different the way I collect with Joseph. So I find one or two artists or three artists maybe, or even four, that I really, really love. And then I go deep into their work and try and get as much from a particular artist and then a particular book as I can. So for me, in Mobius, for example, so I've collected a lot of Mobius bought and sold over the years, and particularly my favourite books by Mobius is the Incal, and so I just kind of got it in my head that I would collect the whole lot over time, and started just picking up pages from Incal, in the process driving the prices higher and higher and higher, and therefore making it more and more difficult for myself to get any more. So I tend to go kind of narrow and deep, as opposed to trying to just find the best piece from a particular artist or a particular book. But I do there's certain books that I'll go for. So whilst I love Dave Gibbons' art generally, and his style, the Watchmen in particular is the only book of by Dave that I collect the art, or have collected the art. and that's because of the story being so meaningful and many other reasons, the design of it and everything. Yeah, so yes, and different collectors really have different perspectives and views on how they collect. I don't think there's really there's not one way of doing it. It's your own personal preference. That's what it comes down to.